He walked into that classroom with secondhand clothes, a quiet stare, and a violin case everyone thought was just another joke. The teachers smirked. The students snickered. They thought they were about to embarrass the shy black kid who barely spoke. But the moment he lifted that violin to his chin, the entire room froze. What happened next turned mockery into shame, silence into shock, and a forgotten boy into the name the whole country couldn't stop talking about. If you love your mom and dad, hit that subscribe button and show some love to her. 12-year-old Malik Parker had always known he didn't fit in. While other kids wore brand new sneakers and laughed loudly down the hallways, Malik walked quietly, holding his mother's old violin case like it was the last piece of the world that belonged to him. His mother had been a music teacher before passing away 2 years ago, and the violin was the only thing she left behind that felt alive. His new school, Maple Ridge Middle, wasn't welcoming. Eyes followed him, some curious, some judging, some just plain cruel. But Malik kept his head down, surviving silently, one class at a time. The trouble began when he signed up for the school's prestigious music elective, a class most students believed was reserved for the rich, the privileged, and the kids whose parents donated big checks to the school. Malik had none of that. His only currency was talent, and even that remained hidden because the world hadn't given him many chances to shine. The day he walked into the music room holding the worn-out violin case, the atmosphere changed instantly. A few kids whispered, others snickered. But it was the teachers, Mr. Dalton and Ms. Rowe, the music directors, who exchanged looks of doubt. Mr. Dalton cleared his throat. Malik, that's a violin? Do you know how to play it?" Malik nodded quietly. Ms. Rowe forced a smile. "Well, this should be interesting." It wasn't the words that stung. It was the tone. The way they talked down to him, as if his being black, quiet, and from the poorer part of town automatically meant he couldn't possibly have real talent. Malik took a seat in the back, ignoring the giggles around him. The class began tuning instruments, and when Malik opened his violin case, a few kids laughed openly at the scratched wood and faded strings. Someone whispered, "Looks like he dug it out of the trash." Another added, "Bet he can't even hold it right." Mr. Dalton clapped his hands to get attention. "All right, everyone. Today we're doing individual evaluations. One by one, each of you will come up and play a short piece so we can see your skill level." Eyes turned toward Malik, with the kind of anticipation reserved for a disaster waiting to happen. Mr. Dalton looked directly at him. "Malik, why don't you go first?" The tone wasn't inviting. It was mocking. A trap disguised as a test. Malik swallowed hard. His palms felt sweaty. His heart raced, but he stood. He walked to the front with a calmness he didn't feel. The whispers got louder. Someone coughed. "Don't mess up." Malik placed the violin under his chin, and just before he played, he closed his eyes. He whispered to himself, "For you, Mom." The room expected screeching. They expected a joke. What they got was fire wrapped in beauty. The bow touched the string and the room changed. The first note rose like a quiet sunrise, soft, golden, and pure. Then the melody unfolded with a complexity none of them were prepared for. It wasn't a children's tune. It wasn't a simple exercise. Malik played a piece his mother wrote for him when he was 6, a piece full of emotion, longing, joy, and pain. The sounds filled every inch of the room. Warm, haunting, breathtaking. Kids who were laughing seconds ago sat frozen. Teachers who were mocking him moments earlier blinked rapidly, their faces draining of color. Malik wasn't just good, he was extraordinary. When the final note hung in the air, trembling like a fragile memory, silence drowned the room. Malik slowly opened his eyes, expecting laughter, insults, or snide remarks. Instead, he found disbelief. Ms. Rowe's jaw was hanging open. Mr. Dalton blinked as if he were waking up from a dream. Not a single student moved. You didn't learn that here," Ms. Rowe finally stuttered. "No," Malik replied softly. "My mom taught me." Mr. Dalton cleared his throat, embarrassed. "Well, it was, acceptable." Acceptable? That word hit the floor like a stone. Whispers erupted again, but this time they weren't mocking. They were impressed, amazed, confused. How could they not have known? How could this kid, this quiet, overlooked boy, play with such mastery? Over the next few days, Malik became a name people said differently. No longer with mockery, now with curiosity, admiration, envy. Students whispered about the prodigy kid in the music class, but admiration didn't bring peace. Jealousy crept in. Two particular students, Jason and Brett, both from wealthy families, felt threatened. They had always been the stars of the music department. They played violin too, but more like machines than artists. Technically perfect, emotionally empty. Malik's performance had exposed their limits. One afternoon, Jason cornered Malik near the lockers. "Hey, prodigy," he sneered. "Play that fancy song again, or were you just lucky that day?" Malik shook his head and started to leave, but Brett shoved him lightly. "What's wrong? Afraid to prove it wasn't a fluke?" Malik stepped back, holding his violin protectively. Jason smirked. "Relax, we're not gonna break your toy, yet." Malik avoided them, but jealousy only grows when ignored. The final straw came when Ms. Rowe announced the school would be selecting one violinist to perform a solo at the annual state showcase, a performance broadcasted statewide. Immediately, everyone knew who the obvious choice was: Malik. Even the kids who didn't like him admitted no one else compared. But Mr. Dalton made an announcement that shocked the entire class. The soloist will be decided by a performance trial between Jason and Brett. Not Malik, not the kid who played like he was born with music in his blood. The room murmured. Even kids who disliked Malik frowned. "But sir," someone whispered, "what about Malik?" Mr. Dalton pretended he didn't hear. Malik sat still. His hands tightened around the violin. He wasn't surprised. He had felt this coming. They weren't just jealous. They were scared. Scared that a black boy from the poorest neighborhood would outshine the kids with private tutors and $1,000 violins. Scared that talent could grow anywhere, not just in neat, privileged boxes. But fate has its own rhythm. A week before the showcase, Jason and Brett were rehearsing when disaster struck. Well, to them, it was disaster, though truthfully, their arrogance brought it upon themselves. They decided to practice an advanced concerto far beyond their actual skill. In the middle of the piece, Jason attempted a difficult run, lost control, and his bow snapped mid-stroke, slicing into the strings of his violin and snapping two of them instantly. Brett panicked, bumped into him, and knocked over a stand, damaging the scroll of his own instrument. Both violins were ruined. Repairs would take weeks, not days. The school panicked. The showcase was approaching fast. The principal demanded the teachers choose a new soloist immediately. And there was only one name that made sense: Malik. Mr. Dalton unwillingly approached him. "Malik, would you be willing to—" "Yes," Malik replied calmly, without hesitation. The day of the showcase arrived. The auditorium was packed with parents, students, teachers, and local community leaders. Malik stood backstage, clutching his violin. He felt the familiar ache of missing his mother. She had dreamt of seeing him on a stage like this. Now, the seat beside his aunt was empty. He whispered, "I hope you're watching." When his name was announced, the crowd murmured with surprise. Many expected a highly trained, wealthy child. Instead, a quiet black boy stepped into the spotlight. Some people whispered, some doubted, some even frowned. But the moment Malik played, the entire theater transformed. He played not just the piece assigned, he played a story. His story. A journey of struggle, loneliness, loss, and hope. Every note painted a picture. Every pause held a memory. Every crescendo carried a heartbeat. The audience leaned forward without realizing it. Some wiped tears. Some forgot to breathe. By the time he finished, the room erupted, not into applause, but into a standing ovation so loud the stage vibrated. The principal himself rushed onto the stage, shaking Malik's hand with tears in his eyes. Mr. Dalton and Ms. Rowe couldn't hide their shame. Cameras from local news stations surrounded him. Interviews poured in. A talent scout in the audience approached his aunt with an offer for a scholarship at the state's top music academy. Malik Parker, the boy they mocked, became the boy they celebrated. And as the applause thundered, Malik looked up at the empty seat beside his aunt and whispered, "We did it, Mom." Thank you for watching. Tell me in the comments, from which part of the country are you watching this video? In the days following the showcase, Malik's life changed faster than he could comprehend. Overnight, he became the center of conversations he never asked for. Teachers who barely acknowledged his existence now smiled too wide, too often. Students who once ignored him waved at him in the hallways as if they had always been friends. Even Jason and Brett, once proud golden boys of the music department, lowered their shoulders when passing him. Their arrogance had evaporated, replaced by something Malik recognized immediately: shame. But Malik didn't feel victorious. He felt overwhelmed. He wasn't used to being seen, let alone celebrated. Fame, even small-town fame, tasted bittersweet when he had no mother to share it with. The local news aired a segment titled, "From Quiet to Phenomenal." Meet the boy who stunned the state showcase. They showed clips of Malik playing, his aunt wiping tears, and the audience rising to their feet. That clip spread across social media, first around town, then across the state. Messages poured in from musicians, teachers, parents, students, some praising him, some thanking him for inspiring their own kids. Malik appreciated every kind word, but a small part of him felt uneasy. Attention was never his goal. Music was simply the only language he understood deeply. At school, the principal called a special assembly to honor excellence. Everyone knew who it was for. Malik walked onto the stage, his steps slow, careful. The auditorium erupted with applause. But in the front row sat Mr. Dalton and Ms. Rowe, stiff and visibly uncomfortable. They clapped, but without enthusiasm, because the spotlight shining on Malik also exposed their failure. The principal gave Malik a certificate, a small trophy, and a promise that the school would fully support his musical journey. Cameras flashed, students cheered, but Malik's eyes kept drifting to the corner of the room where Jason and Brett sat hunched, their faces a mixture of resentment and regret. The assembly ended, and the hallway swarmed around him. Kids asking questions, teachers offering help, strangers wanting autographs. Malik smiled politely, answered softly, and squeezed through the chaos. But as he rounded a corner near the music wing, he found Jason leaning against the lockers, waiting. Brett stood beside him, arms folded. Malik paused. "You need something?" he asked gently. Jason swallowed hard. How did you learn to play like that?" he asked, his voice low. Not mocking this time, just defeated. Malik shrugged. "My mom taught me. She taught me to feel the music, not just play it." Brett looked away. "We weren't trying to ruin your chances," he muttered, though both knew it wasn't true. Malik didn't respond. He didn't want revenge. He didn't want them humiliated. All he ever wanted was a chance. He walked past them, leaving them with their guilt. But the story didn't end with applause and school certificates. A new twist was coming, one Malik never expected. A week after the showcase, a black SUV pulled up in front of his home. His aunt, standing at the doorway, stiffened. 3 people stepped out, a woman in a dark suit, a man carrying a violin case, and another man with a camera. Malik froze. The woman smiled warmly. "You must be Malik," she said in Sab. "My name is Vanessa Green. I'm a representative of the National Youth Philharmonic." Malik blinked, unsure he heard correctly. What?" she continued. "We saw your performance. We've been following the news. And we would like to invite you to audition for our national program." Malik stared blankly. He had watched videos of the National Youth Philharmonic online. Kids with mastery beyond their years, performing in halls bigger than entire neighborhoods. They were the elite of the elite. The idea of standing among them terrified him. But Vanessa wasn't done. If you passed the audition, it could lead to scholarships, travel opportunities, and professional-level training. Malik's aunt gasped, covering her mouth. But Malik's heart pounded unevenly. He looked at Vanessa and whispered, "But I don't have fancy training. I don't have a perfect violin. I don't have money for lessons." Vanessa smiled again. "You have what can't be taught. Talent, heart, emotion, and those are worth more than any expensive violin." She handed him an envelope. Inside was an official invitation letter. Embossed, formal, unbelievable. Malik didn't sleep that night. The next afternoon, he went to the school's music room to practice. As he entered, he saw Mr. Dalton and Ms. Rowe quietly talking. Their conversation stopped instantly when they saw him. Mr. Dalton cleared his throat. "Malik, we heard about your invitation." Ms. Rowe clasped her hands together. "This is quite an honor." Their faces were polite, but behind their smiles was something else: fear. If Malik succeeded nationally, their earlier mistreatment would come to light even more. Malik knew it. They knew it. And the weight of that truth hung heavily in the room. "Do you need anything?" Ms. Rowe asked. "Sheet music? Guidance? Recommendations?" Malik lifted his violin. "I just need a quiet room." Their forced smiles twitched. Malik walked past them and began practicing. As the notes filled the air, the teachers stood listening, fully aware that the boy they once mocked was now beyond their reach. But trouble was brewing in a different corner of the school. Jason and Brett hadn't accepted defeat gracefully. They were no longer the music department's shining stars. Their fall from grace had been too public, too humiliating. And watching Malik rise higher and higher fed a growing bitterness. One afternoon, Jason slammed his locker shut and muttered, "He thinks he's better than us now." Brett replied, "Everyone thinks he's some kind of genius, but he's still just him." Jason's jaw tightened. "We need to remind everyone he's not perfect." It didn't take long for them to cross a line. 2 days before Malik's big audition, he placed his violin case on his desk in homeroom. When he opened it, his breath shattered. The strings were cut. The bridge was snapped. Deep scratches carved the wood like angry claws. His mother's violin, the last gift she ever gave him, was destroyed. He felt the world collapse inward. His chest tightened. His hands trembled so violently he could barely close the case. Students looked over. Whispers spread. Tears burned the edges of his vision, but he refused to let them fall. The room blurred. The walls closed in. His breathing became shallow. Someone had taken the most precious thing he had. Not just an instrument, his memories, his mother's voice, his comfort, his identity. The teacher gasped. "Who did this?" Malik couldn't speak. His throat was locked. His heart felt crushed under a weight he couldn't lift. The principal was called. A report was filed. But everyone in the class knew exactly who did it. And even without proof, their guilt hung over them like a storm cloud. Malik walked home in silence. That night, he sat alone on the edge of his bed, the broken violin beside him. He touched the splintered wood with shaking fingers. The memories of his mother playing, her smile, her warmth, flooded his mind. And, for the first time in years, Malik cried freely, without holding back. But fate hadn't abandoned him. At 9 p.m., a knock echoed through the house. His aunt opened the door and froze. It was the man from Vanessa's team, the one holding a violin case the day they first visited. "Is Malik home?" he asked. His voice was gentle but firm. Malik appeared at the doorway, wiping his face quickly, trying to hide the evidence of heartbreak. The man stepped forward and opened the case he carried. Inside was a violin unlike anything Malik had ever touched. Rich brown wood, polished to a soft glow, pristine strings, flawless craftsmanship. "This," he said quietly, "belonged to my mentor. He passed away last year. He always believed instruments find the people meant to play them." Malik stared, unable to breathe. I can't take that." The man shook his head. "You're not taking it. You're honoring it. Your audition is in 2 days. Use this." Malik couldn't speak. He reached out slowly, touching the instrument with trembling fingers. It felt warm, alive, perfect. And for the first time since the showcase, hope returned. He practiced non-stop. Every hour, every breath, every heartbeat poured into the strings. He learned the audition piece. Then he reshaped it, infusing emotion the way his mother taught him. The new violin responded beautifully, as if it understood his pain and power. The day of the audition arrived. Malik stepped onto the grand stage of the Philharmonic Hall, his hands shaking slightly. Vanessa smiled reassuringly from the side. Judges watched silently, expecting excellence. Malik lifted the violin. The room held its breath. And when he played, the world listened. His performance was a storm and a prayer at once. Raw pain, triumphant hope, brokenness repaired with melody. The judge's expression softened, then melted into astonishment. When he finished, the hall remained silent for a full 5 seconds. Before applause erupted like thunder, Malik passed the audition with the highest score of the year. When he returned to town, the school greeted him with pride, except for 2 students who couldn't meet his eyes. Jason and Brett eventually faced consequences when their involvement in damaging the violin came to light. They were suspended, stripped of privileges, and required to apologize publicly. But Malik didn't relish their downfall. He accepted their apology quietly, with maturity far beyond his age. Because Malik Parker had already learned the truth. Real power doesn't come from hurting others. It comes from rising after being broken, from playing your own song, no matter who tries to silence it. Part 2 ends with Malik standing on that same school stage, sharing his story with younger students, telling them, "You don't need the best violin. You don't need the best clothes. You just need someone who believes in you. And if you don't have that someone, then be it for yourself." His journey had only begun.